Hey, good morning, my neighbors. Welcome to another episode of BYTTT. Before you take the trade, there's a lot that we got to cover, and we're going to go right to it. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and that bell button. It'll be greatly appreciated. And I thank you to all my subscribers and supporters that has been with me. We got a lot to do, and there's a lot of money flying around. Let's start. So the first thing I want to bring up is the live screen. If we look at this area here, you can kind of see NQ is trying to reject and really push down, filling some fair value gaps that's down here. But this whole entire move, I think a lot of these buyers are still inside of the market. Hence the reason why we made all-time highs. I think they want to take another stab at all-time highs, getting above that 24,000. I don't think we have the energy for that, but this is letting us know that the sellers do not have any real control. Every time there's a sense of a buy to dip, and I think it's continuing, especially when we get over to the news. If we start to get under that 23,700, which I think that's what they're scared of, 23,600 will probably be tested, and if it does, that could be the catalyst that starts a whole entire domino effect to play all the way to the downside. So that's the one I'm kind of concerned about. We still have not broken this downward trend here, but we're pressing up against support, so we'll see what happens there. All right, let's go ahead and get into oil. Oil, we kind of was looking at the opening range breakout for that day, and you can kind of see nice little setup here, breakout of this area. If you haven't been part of the Get Rich and Fit Trying, folks, go ahead and let me know. Send me a DM, put in the comments I want to join, and I will add you in there, and we could go ahead and get rich and fit trying. But anyways, let's go ahead and keep this party going. You can kind of see nice little solid move right here, and it took out that whole entire contract expiration great gap. We got probably like about maybe 5 to 10% of it left, and then they could go ahead and make that drop, and that's what they did. So looking at this order block as a whole, this could be another bounce to try to liquidate more recent bears to see if they can get the rest of this gap just to come back down again. So just keep that in mind, because this order block is strong enough to get back up to this register, but there's a strong possibility it'll continue down. Here's gold. Gold, same thing, opening range breakout. The only difference is it built a base, and I think this is more of like a round bottom. I'm looking for gold to go ahead and continue up to that upper register and get a little bit further up. Probably even take out the highs at 25.36. Now, how can we confirm that? You already know I love to use silver to confirm some of these actions. And if we look over at silver, you can see this is starting to build like a wedging action for themselves, which is looking like a bull pennant. So if we break out of this range here, we probably could really hit that $40, and I think that's the catalyst that gets us up there. All right, and then we got the British pound. The British pound has been trying to hold this area. This is a good reversal point because, again, this was the right shoulder for our head and shoulders, even though we only took 50% of the move. It is just letting you know how much of a bull market we have in the U.S., which the British pound will benefit from as the dollar loses value. But yeah, so we got a nice little micro trend that's right here, and if this micro trend tends to hold, we're probably going to go ahead and put some pressure and get the rest of the move down here. Won't be considered a head and shoulder, so I'm not banking on that, but there's a lot of fair value gap action that we could probably test. Here is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is back inside of its range, which was a little bit of a shocker. We did make higher highs, so I do believe that there's some sense of a pivot point between here, and maybe even in here that could probably give Bitcoin a little bit more of a bounce. If not, we're probably going to be coming testing somewhere around that 100,000, which I don't want to see. But again, the market's going to do what the market wants to do. Looking at this fair value gap, if we really bounce off of this level with a little bit of a reversal on the day, on the daily, then we could get a nice little crossover. Bearish divergence was just a divergence to a pullback, and then we just do a nice little curl up of the MACD and continue to the upside. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at Bitcoin. Here's the Russell. The Russell is starting to look really, really good for a reversal and taking out all that sell side liquidity. Look for the target somewhere around this area here for us to continue back up to the upside. got a nice little solid base here, and I think that's what they're trying to do, kind of give you that wedge in action, sitting on top of a fair value gap, sitting on top of an order block. If they can close, they did close above yesterday, which is what I told y'all yesterday. If we close above, there's a strong possibility we're going to get another green candle going and continue to the upside, so we'll see what happens there. All right, and then the last is not NQ. It is the DXY, the infamous, the undeniable, the one that is the heavyweight champ of the world, right? Because this thing, I'm telling you, you chart the dollar. If y'all don't believe me, when this thing starts to move, like this impactful move that happened on the first, there was a reason that happened. It was because the dollar was putting some pressure to the downside. So I'm looking at this as a potential break. They have been trying to get through this block and they cannot. So I'm looking for this thing to kind of fall through, test this level at 97 to 94, maybe a little bit lower into this area, and see what happens. But whatever happens, I think this is just a prelude to a kiss, because that means we're breaking this trend line. This is a trend line we built all the way back in July that started the whole entire drop off going into August, where we had this nice little pop. And if this continues, we probably could make some massive move, and that's probably why the market is holding where it is, because they cannot gain any control with the dollar. All right, so let's go ahead and get right to it. Go ahead and pull out a pen in the pad, because it's coming in hot. It's the news, and the first thing we always start with is the economic calendar. And the economic calendar, we got a couple of things that's coming in from Canada. The building permits, like I said, I'm looking at it. I'm not too worried about it, but for the most part, this is going to tell us what the state of the economy is. Are people buying houses? Are developers putting more buildings out there? What's the plans out there? So Fed Bowman's going to be speaking there. So I think between 2 and this 8:30 news, we're probably going to get a little bit of sideways movement from tech, because this doesn't really affect tech. ES maybe, because we got a couple people that's reporting their earnings. I'm really looking out for Toll Brothers, which we're going to break down a little bit. And then we got some Japan stuff. And then going into tomorrow, there's some PPI information coming in for Canada and Europe. Then we got mortgage rates. So after housing, we're going to get the mortgage rates and then oil inventory with Fed Wallace speaking. I'm curious about these two. So just to give you a little setup, 20-year bond, FOMC minutes, these things can add volatility. So look for possible sideways movement throughout the day, consolidation, choppy. And then after Thursday, we probably could get some real solid moves to that considered upside. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of the articles. So I got a couple of things that I want to cover. Like, for example, this one here. So Bernstein lowers rating on Li Auto, says EV maker will see a bumpier road ahead. Now, here's the funny thing about it. I kind of agree, because Chinese stocks are very, very tough to relatively trade. If we look at this on a weekly, you can kind of see that Li has been really struggling to really get above its weekly 200 moving average. So I'm curious, is this a warning sign that this is going to retest its lows down to $19? Or is this one of those buy the rumor, sell the news? Again, I don't trade a lot of Chinese stocks, so I would say just keep an eye on the level of 2307 if you're playing it to the downside. But this 200 moving average would be about $26. If we come over to the daily, it looks very sporadic. It looks very sideways. So that's why I went to a higher time frame, because this can get you into a whole lot of trouble. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at Li Auto. Not a fan, but if you'd like to if you like to trade Chinese stocks, then Li Auto could give you some volatility in the next couple of days, especially the way this whole entire move is looking on the weekly, and the oscillators at its lower register. So there's going to be some move there. Earnings is going to be roughly around September 2nd, so just keep that in mind as far as picking your contracts. Also, we have this. You already know how I feel about cybersecurity. Buy Palo Alto if it sees post-earnings sell-off, according to this chief investment officer. Now, the thing with Palo Alto, I think they're a very strong company. The problem is that they just recently had a split, and the market's trying to dissect how that split is going to be handled. If we look here, you could kind of see nice little move back to the upside. You got 7% extra on the earnings, almost $1 a share. That's what you want to see from your growth companies. And then right here, we got $2.5 billion. They found an extra $35 million. Anybody ever tells you I found an extra $35 million, look at them as your best friend. If we look at this chart, and its whole, especially on this monthly, it has been getting a little bit beat up, especially after July. So I do think, and I explained this on yesterday, cybersecurity, AI needs it, right? It needs that protection so that way there's not anyone that's going to hack it and mess with the coding. So companies like cybersecurity is going to be important. Palo Alto is one of the best in its space, and let's put it all together. It doesn't matter if it's ChatGPT or anything else. We're talking about just AI as a whole. We're talking about things that are used and move through automation. You turn around and have a hacker that destroys your whole entire automation structure. It probably could destroy your whole entire company structure all the way down to its redundancy program. So if their cybersecurity is not important today, it will be important tomorrow. So proper investment in that space when dealing with companies like Palo Alto would be key. And I love where this chart is. It's up $11 after earnings after its drop. All right. So that's everything. Let's go ahead and switch things up and start talking about the earnings cycle. There's quite a bit of things that I want to see out of here. The first one that we're going to be talking about is at Home Depot. The Home Depot did look like it was trying to struggle. Sorry, it was trying to break out, but it struggled. I wanted the touch up here. I really did. And I thought earnings was going to get us there, but it looks like that's not going to happen. I think when the market opens, because the earnings didn't bring us to this level, there's going to be a lot of sell-off. I'm looking for a Home Depot to try and get to 380 before it tries to bounce again. And the first thing they're going to do is get back up into that register. So that's one I'm looking at. Medtronic, we talked about Medtronic yesterday. Relatively good company for the most part, and I do like the dividends. I might add this to the list. I'm trying my best not to just jump to conclusions because it looks good right now, but after the earnings, it looks like a little bit of a pullback. Probably going to get another pullback for the dividends when the dividends drop around September 26th, but I will not be surprised that this thing takes a little bit of a pivot and continues to the upside. So I'm very curious about this one. And then Toll Brothers, like I said, if I'm looking at homes, I'm looking at companies like Toll Brothers and Pluth more so than I'm looking at DR Horton and Lennar, and there's reasons behind that. So I love what I'm seeing with Toll Brothers. Earnings looks like it is dropping tonight. This is what they're anticipating, so keep an eye on that. Interesting, golden cross on the daily. I didn't notice that yesterday. Above the 50 moving average. Looking forward to get up into that 153. Okay, we might have a trade for today. We'll see how that goes. All right, for tomorrow morning, we're going to have TGT, which is Target. Now, Target has been going sideways for a while. I think they finally fixed all their flaws. The problem is this space is going to probably get destroyed if tech starts running. What I mean by that is that Walmart is also in this space, which we're going to be talking about that later on this week, and it's been doing this topping pattern as a whole. So what I'm saying is, with Walmart moving at the way that it's moving, and this is all the benefit that Target got out of that as far as the sector itself, I won't be surprised if Walmart drops and Target drops with it and it starts to get into those lower registers. So just be prepared in case that $92 needs to be revisited. And then we got Cody. I know it's the tail end of earnings season. No one wants to talk about no doggone Cody. The last time we talked about Cody was probably during the pandemic. Oh, look at this. Disgusting. Looks like an M pattern that was with another M pattern that broke down, and then they took this one out, but it refuses to extend because they know it'll go to the OTC market. But a nice little fair value gap that's sitting right here if they have some solid earnings, because they have been doing terrible. We probably could get a nice little sweep back up into that upside, but if not, look for this thing to probably go ahead and end up in the OTC. All right. Earnings cycle. We got so much that we could be talking about. I already talked about cybersecurity. I am disappointed by coin. I knew there would be a pullback. We did make some higher highs, right? But how far it pulled back was a little bit more than I felt like it was warranted. Look at what they did. They found more money for less. So I do think there's going to be a bounce on Coinbase. Not saying for you to buy the dip, but you might want to keep your eyeballs on this one. I have it on my yellow watch list. The major's going to move in there. Royal Caribbean, also part of a pullback after making all-time highs. I think it finally found its base and is going to continue up. The only thing is we're going to that part of the season where cruises is not the greatest. No. Kids got to go to school. Parents got to go to work. and then we got to worry about Christmas, and Christmas is not one that really take care of cruises. Like, oh, for Christmas we're going to go to a cruise. No, you hear Christmas gifts and shopping. That's what you're going to get. So this one is going to be a nice little eyeball test. If you want to take a dip and you want some long-term investment, maybe you can dip a toe a little bit and then be prepared for the lower prices to dip even more. And then as it keeps on building its base, add some more. That's what I probably would do with this one. What else we got? Let's go down into wrong list. Let's go into DraftKings. Now this one was very interesting, and I should have been a little bit. I should have paid a little bit more attention to this. We normally sell off right after Super Bowl. That's how it usually happens, right? And after Super Bowl, we don't really build a base like this because let's go over to 2024. Here is right. Come on, where are you? Right after Super Bowl, sell off, build all the way down in middle of August, and then they kind of push up. But this sell off was kind of deep, but they started building up in June, and I doubted that. I was like, there's nothing going on. Yeah, the NBA playoffs is there, but is it really driving DraftKings? But the earnings it was okay. It was okay. I think there was a lot of anticipation of this move was going to come, so people jumped into this space. So I think this double top action is probably going to give us a little bit of a strong pullback. And when that pullback is done, then we probably could go ahead and give ourselves a nice little push when it's all said and done. So maybe 50 bucks. Maybe we could get to 50 bucks. That's what we're going to be looking for. And give y'all one more and then we'll get out of here. Let's talk about Alta. I like Alta only because my wife was a big proponent of this one. She's a little upset at me because when it kind of had that pop in the back here, I want to say it was like 2023, 2024. I sold, and it is higher than from where I sold. So yeah, she's probably mad at me. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and look. Ever since it had this golden cross here, it's just been drifting to the upside. Their options contracts really suck, but this is a really, really good company. This is good to invest in, so just keep that one in mind. All right, so that said, I want to say thank you very much for participating with BYTTT, because it's only people like you that really powers this channel. So don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button, letting the algorithm know that I dropped some solid knowledge. And I bid you a fond farewell. See y'all later. You have a great day. Bye-bye.